Welcome in to another Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I'm joined as always by Chris Emerson. Chris, how you doing?
Doing great, man. The season's right around the corner. We got some preseason, man. I'm fired up.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe there's whenever I watch. Oh, actually, I'm watching it right now. I'm watching NBA TV. I feel like the rest of the world is watching Monday Night Football. No, I'm watching a random preseason game between OKC and the San Antonio Spurs. That's how psyched I am for the NBA season to be back. But as of right now, 14 days, 22 hours, and 24 minutes if you're watching live with us.
I love
So
it.
we are right around the corner to Wolves basketball, and I couldn't be more excited. Obviously, one preseason game in, and let's start with that. What did you see out of that preseason game? I know Dillingham looked pretty good. I mean, DiVincenzo 4 for 4. You can't ask for more than that. But I thought that everyone was good in the preseason game. Like, we had a 20-point lead in the second quarter, and then the scrubs came in. Or I don't want to call them scrubs, but the second string came in and kind of gave it back, and we won at the end. But what was your impressions from that preseason game?
What I'd like to see, and I want to see if it continues through the preseason, is just Dillingham being able to get his shot off. Like, he didn't shoot a great percentage. Like, he scored 21 points, but I believe it was on 21 shots.
20
That's
shots,
pretty bad. Yeah, but in reality, just like we said when Anthony Edwards was young, like, it's like an elite NBA skill to be able to get 20 shots up in a small amount of time. Like, it's not easy to get those shots up. So that meant that he was, getting separation, and he was, getting the spots that he liked. So just him being that active was impressive to me, because we're going to need a guy like that off the bench that's willing to get shots out.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, his percentage, not terrible, 9 for 20, so 45%. What I really like, and we saw it in college, him shooting 40% in Kentucky, 3 for 6 from behind the three-point line, which now granted, when the second string is in, a lot of his time was with the second string, so he is the primary scorer in that scenario, but he did well with what he had. And Terrence Shannon Jr., I thought, was pretty solid as well. 5 for 11, did go 0 for 5 from 3, had about looks like 11 points or 14 points, I should say. So I thought he looked all right, but man, like I was saying, I thought everyone who played looked good. I thought Rudy did his thing. DiVincenzo 4 for 4 from the field, made 3 threes, made that bomb. I love how I was watching ESPN after Cat's first game. They went nuts over this 3 basically on a broken possession play that he just chucked up and made. What they didn't talk about, and this is not necessarily a downgrade on Cat, but what they didn't mention is Cat went 2 for 7, and that was the only 3 that he made the whole game. So they didn't talk as much about DiVincenzo going 4 for 4. It was more, Cat made 1 3.
Yeah, I mean, that coastal bias gets a little ridiculous with the NBA, where if you're not an East Coast team or a West Coast team, nobody really cares about you, but that's fine. We'll stay under the radar. We'll keep rolling. I mean, our team is so deep, even without Randle, we still, had trouble getting everybody in there. So right. I'm just excited to see this whole process play out through the preseason. And, like you were talking about Terrence Shannon, we know he's good in transition. Like, that's not going to be a surprise. He's going to get out on the break. He's going to, go for loose balls. But yeah, the 3-point shooting, especially the corner 3, that's something he's going to have to dial in, because if he doesn't, shoot that at an NBA quality level, he probably just won't be in the league very long.
Right. Absolutely. So let's get into that 3-point shooting as a whole. And I found some interesting stats on the matter. So obviously, as everybody knows, the Wolves were 3rd in 3-point percentage last season. But here's the big but about it. 21st in 3 points attempted. Now, you want a recipe for success for a team that made huge strides last year and won the NBA championship? How about the Boston Celtics? 2nd in 3-point percentage, but 1st in 3-point attempts. And I find this stat crazy, which is why every day I keep saying it every day. I love the Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo Cat trade
Oh
even
yeah,
more
sure.
because last year Cat per game 5.3 3-pointer attempts per game. How many did DiVincenzo shoot in less minutes? Fourth in the NBA in 3-point makes, fourth in attempts per game at 8.7. This guy's shooting 9 threes a game and making about close to half of them.
I mean, and that's the thing. Everyone gets, excited when they look at the back of a basketball card or whatever on your stat sheet and you see Karl Anthony Towns is shooting like 43% from three, and that's wonderful.
Right.
But I mean, like Chris Finch himself has said, he doesn't want anyone on his team to lead the NBA in 3-point percentage, although Conley almost did. He says if they do, it means they're not shooting enough. And that's what Karl Anthony Towns' biggest problem was. It seemed to me like he was too worried about getting that, 50, 40, 90 club to say that he was like, the big that made the 50, 40, 90 club. When in reality, he should be shooting 9 3-pointers a game. He shouldn't be shooting 5. Like, there's been plenty of years where Randle himself has outshot Karl Anthony Towns in 3-pointers attempted. Like, we need him to be putting those shots up. So now he's somebody else's problem. But I think on our roster, we're going to find guys that are going to get those shots up. And I think Dillingham and DiVincenzo are going to be two of them.
Right. And here's a crazy stat. Just one more thing about the trade. One more thing that I got to throw in that I find this crazy. Julius Randle, who he was in a 3-point shooting contest, but same amount of threes attempted per game as Cat last season. Which that
was a down year for him.
Right. And if you are one of the best shooting big men in the league, you got to take more. Like, you got to be Curry range of shots, which is about 9.5 per game.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely we ragged on him about that on here. Like, we often talked about, like, let it fly. Like, I'm sick of you. Like, either shoot that 3, pass the ball, or straight line drive. Nothing else. But again, I don't have to worry about him anymore. And I mean, I'm so excited, and I'm sure there's going to be other stuff that'll annoy me with, some of the guys we have now, but it's a big weight off my personal shoulders not having to watch Karl Anthony Towns play, because a lot of times he really frustrated me. So I'm excited to see what this turns into. And I think we're going to have so much more pressure on the rim. Like, with everybody, I mean, I think we're going to have a lot more kick out threes. I think we're going to have a lot more guys shooting from the perimeter wide open, while guys like Randle and Edwards are crashing the rim and kicking out.
So I wanted to ask you a question. So you think that getting up more 3-pointers, that'll just come naturally with, DiVincenzo, you add the fourth most 3-point attempts in the league, and he didn't even start the entire year. He only started about, I would say, 3/4 of the game. So you think that'll increase with that? Maybe Jaden taking a couple more threes, maybe Nas getting a little more liberty to take the threes. We know Randle, and maybe we don't want him to take as many as Cat, but Randle will chuck up some threes. He shoots about league average from behind the 3-point line, at least historically. So is that what you think, that basically with the spacing and Randle driving and kicking to these guys and Conley kicking to these guys, that'll basically help us next year for rising our 3-point attempts?
I think it will. I do think that will, but I think there's two main factors that I think kind of, squash our 3-point attempts. Is Karl Anthony Towns was reluctant to shoot when the ball swung to him in rhythm sometimes. Why? I don't know, but that's, not our problem anymore. And he also kind of killed the rhythm sometimes, where maybe one more swing would have been another open shot. But who else was somebody who was a reluctant 3-point shooter? Slow-mo. I mean, how many times did he probably had kick to him in the corner, or swing to him in the corner for a wide open 3 or 4 times a game, and he'd fake it and then drive. So, like, even if those shots that are just in the rhythm of the offense, finding the open guy, even if those shots go up, we're going to be shooting 3 or 4 more threes a game, and that probably skyrockets us up those numbers.
And and I love that you mentioned that, because basically, except Gobert, and I want to credit Locked On Wolves, which is another great podcast you should listen to, but they were mentioning how basically everybody except Rudy Gobert, obviously, on the team shoots league average or above from three now
Yes,
on the squad.
and they're willing. I mean,
Yes.
we've got guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's really been pumping up his three-pointers just in the last couple of years with a lot of international play and stuff. So, I mean, he's a volume. He's turning himself into wanting to be a volume three-point shooter. Dante's a volume three-point shooter. Like Anthony Edwards is going to be a volume three-point shooter. I mean, we've got the guys to do it. We just need like McDaniels to just green light when it swings, let it fly. We need everyone to have that sort of feeling so that when the ball gets to where it needs to get, there's no more hesitation. There's no more reluctance. You take the right shot in the flow of the offense. And that's something that, we didn't quite do as much as we needed to last year. And to be honest with you, Karl-Anthony Towns and Slow-Mo were two of the biggest reasons why we didn't.
Yeah, and I want to pivot here a little bit, because actually I was talking with someone at basketball about this, and I wanted to get your perspective of it. It was a good point. What about the backup 4 minutes? Because obviously now we have Julius Randle to play the backup 4, and you would theorize that a combination of Naz and Rudy would play the 5. Who do you see at backup 4 for this team? Do they move over Jaden McDaniels to play a little 4? Is it a Leonard Miller situation? What do you think?
I don't think it's going to be so much like hockey, where 5 guys are in, 5 guys are out.
Sure.
My guess is that we're probably going to have a 3 big man rotation with Naz, with Randle, and with Rudy, and there'll probably be some mix and match. Rudy's going to play 30, 35 minutes a game. That leaves about 12, 13, 14, 15 minutes of center. So Naz will probably play 15 minutes at center, which will be the time that Rudy's not in there. So that'll take care of all that. And then you still need to find another 15, 10 minutes for Naz. So that's another 10 minutes that, Randle would have been taking a break when he was at power forward. So that brings him down to, if he's playing 35 minutes, we only need about 5 minutes from McDaniels. So, yeah, I think it'll be that. I mean, there might be some times when Luka Garza is going to come in and give us, 5 minutes of spot play. But I think for the most part, those minutes are going to be eaten up with a big 3 of Naz, Rudy, and Gobert. But okay, I don't mind seeing some, go a little smaller and seeing some McDaniels. I mean, we've got the power now to have a crazy defensive lineup with Rudy Gobert and McDaniels at the front court, and then guys like Dante. Like we can have Dante, we can have Anthony Edwards, and we can have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I mean, those are 3 elite perimeter defenders, 4 if you can include McDaniels, and then Rudy. I mean, we've got so many options on how to do stuff that it's going to be fun to see what Finch does.
And going into the defensive part, a couple stats here. The Wolves, historically good defensive rating, league best 108.4 defensive rating. And some of the stats that I loved, and I think this is the big Rudy Gobert factor here, second in opponents' points in the paint, 46.1. And we've talked about in the past how just the presence of Rudy deters people from going into the paint and attacking. The other stat that I loved, 4th best in opponents' second chance points, 12.3 a game. So we are getting those defensive rebounds. We're not necessarily great at offensive rebounding, but at least on the defensive side, we are clearing those defensive rebounds that, to be honest, was a huge problem for the Wolves in past seasons. So I love what we've done defensively. Defensive rating, Julius Randle is a career 110.5 defensive rating, and then DiVincenzo last season had a 113.2 defensive rating, which was a little higher, but a high usage rate as well. The league average is 116, so still better than league average. And that's why I just love the DiVincenzo, an above league average defender who puts up 9 threes a game and hits half of them. And I know I keep saying them, but I'm so excited for him coming off the bench. I mean, the Wolves have potentially 2 candidates for 6th man of the year. And I know there can't be a true 6th man, but right. I almost feel like if there was an award for 7th man of the year, we might win both.
And I mean, who knows what Dillingham's going to do? I mean, if he can look anything like he did in that preseason game, we might have the 8th man too. I mean, our bench has really moved in the right direction this offseason, and I'm excited to see it because we were not. I mean, we had the 6th man of the year, but kind of that was it. Like, Naw gave us a little bit here and there, but I mean, we didn't really have much impact off the bench. And I think we're going to have a lot of impact this year. It's just going to be a matter of who's going to be getting minutes. I mean, last year we had a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker who was, everyone fell in love with, and he played great, mainly in the regular season, quite a bit better than the playoffs, but still.
He had his moments in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
His moments. I think everyone did.
And it's hard when your minutes get reduced and you're not quite in the same role, but it's going to be harder this year because last year he was basically the backup point guard and the backup shooting guard for us. And this year, I mean, we've got Dillingham at the 1 as a backup, and we've got Dante at the 2. So he might have lost both his spots. So it's going to be interesting to see how we fit some of these guys in that were really effective for us even just a year ago.
I think he could potentially lose his spot at the backup 2 the backup 1 with Dillingham. I think they'll go with Nickeil to start with just because he's a proven commodity and they got to see what this rookie has. But yeah, I like what you said there. The bench is going to be super deep for this team. And I think that's one of the main reasons they made the trade to when the starters are struggling. Some nights, like we'd see Cat and Anthony and Edwards shoot like 30%. And there was no one on the bench that other than Naz Reid that could come and help out. But I think you're going to have a much more balanced attack this year. I want to get into the Wolves kind of offensively as we continue our season preview here. The offensive rating, obviously the defense was great statistically and one of the best defense in the league. You had defensive player of the year. You had Jaden, you had Nickeil, all the above. You had Edwards playing above average defense. But the offense, I think there's room to improve. So overall offensive rating for the Wolves last year, 17th best, 114.6. Now, like I said, offensive rebounding, not really our strength, 21st in the league. And another thing that I found stood out, 23rd in pace and 23rd in turnover percentage at 14.4. And I want to kind of lean into that pace one because we've been saying it, and I want you to talk about it, but Coach Finch talked about how Julius Randle can really push the ball, get the rebound, and push it up court. And I think that's going to be perfect for this team, particularly to advance the pace and get even more threes on the flies and easy baskets.
Well, I mean, exactly. Transition 3-pointers is like the second best 3-pointer after an offensive rebound kick out 3-pointer. I mean, they're super high percentage. Transition buckets, everyone wants them. Like you were saying, or like actually we even said right when the trade happened, one thing that Tim Connolly loves is a power forward or a big that can grab and lead the break right away. No need to have a guard come back, find him in traffic, pass it off. No need to slow down the whole pace. Just get the ball moving right away. We made a big push a couple of years ago for Aaron Gordon. And Aaron Gordon was for that exact same reason. That was when we had Rosas, I believe. But the idea was we wanted a big who could grab and go. There's value to that doesn't show up in the box score, and we have it now. I mean, Randall's that guy. I mean, he'll gladly lead the break, but even more importantly, he'll run the break. Like Karl Anthony Towns was famously kind of the trailer, where Rudy Gobert a lot of times was the first guy down the court or one of the first bigs, but Cat liked to kind of be the guy bringing up the rear and then get the kickback for that, top of the key three. That might not be happening as much this year with Randle, as he likes to push the pace. So I think with Dillingham being an electric type, get up and down type guy, I hope our pace can notch up to, a couple more spots and be, 12th, maybe 10th, something like that. We still might not be, the best, because we like to bog teams down. And if we stop them in their transition and they have to get into their half court, that slows down the possession. So, our defense is going to slow the game down a little bit, but we have to push the pace more with the offense. And everyone we drafted and everyone we brought in is kind of pushing that way, with Terrence Shannon and with Dillingham and with, Dante and with Randall. These guys are all up and down type guys. So I think it was a planned effort to get that adjusted slightly.
And right. And like you said, with the Wolves kind of being a half-court team, the 23rd in pace now, this other stat kind of alerts me as well. They were, like I said, 23rd in turnover percentage. So basically what that means is they're turning over the ball, but it's not like in transition. They're turning over the ball in more of a half-court situation. And obviously some of that is Anthony Edwards, because he's very ball dominant and was 10th in the league in turnovers at 3.1. But I will make the case that you can have a ball dominant, turnover prone player and still be good with the turnover ratio, because I looked up the top 5 players with turnovers per game. Luka Doncic with the Mavs. Last year they were 4th in turnover percentage. Wemby with the Spurs, 24th. LeBron with the Lakers, 17th. Giannis was 4th with the Bucks. They were 8th in turnovers percentage. And Cunningham with the horrible Pistons was 27th. So you look at like Giannis and Luka, I mean, they account for a lot of their team's turnovers, but their team is not very high in turnover percentage. So, like I said, I would like to see a faster pace, but I'd also like to see them take care of the ball a little bit more. And I think that will help if you get down the court a little faster and not let the defense get set.
That's definitely going to help. And anytime you're a ball dominant guy that has a ball a lot, you're going to have turnovers, especially if you're a scorer. So I'm not too worried about that. A lot of drives to the basket, knocked off your knee type thing.
For sure. Yeah. I'm not saying about Edwards. I'm saying that the other guys around him, and honestly, 10th for how much Ant dribbles around isn't too bad. Not bad.
But when you look at other things that, when you think turnovers, offensive fouls are considered turnovers.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
I know somebody who led the league each of the last couple of years in offensive fouls, and he's no longer on our roster. I know somebody who had one of the highest turnover rates, if not the highest turnover rates per drive of the basket, and he's no longer on our team this year. So there's definitely, some addition by subtraction that might help us with that turnover issue. And I mean, just getting into more of a flow of this Chris Finch offense where the ball flows more readily, I think is going to help with that. And I think we've got the guys now that can get that offense moving the way it needs to.
I agree. So I think we're going to put an exclamation point in it there. This is part 1 of our season preview. Next week, we're going to talk more about like win totals and kind of our predictions for the season. But anyway, Chris, thanks so much for being here.
No problem. Another beautiful day.
Absolutely. And this is the Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and or Apple. And as always, go Wolves.